Hi, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another Nextjs 13 video. In today's video, we're going to create a REST API and connect it to PlanetScale database. So we're going to go straight to the code. So if you want to know some theory about data fetching in Nextjs 13, I highly recommend you to check the last video I posted about data fetching, which is going to explain a little bit more about the fetch API and the stuff related to data fetching in Nextjs. So today we're going to use the PlanetScale database. You can see here the dashboard. It's like the most generous free tier I ever seen. So like you have 1 billion reads and 10 million writes per month, and also 1 gigabyte, 5 gigabytes of storage, which is crazy. Like it took me like 1.4K to create to create this app, and you can think about it. Every time that I changed the code, there was a hot reload and the data fetched again. So you can imagine how much, and it's still below 1%. So this is like insanely big free tier. So anyway, let's see the app. So as you can see here, it's a pretty basic CRUD app. So you have these users that you can fetch with get users, and you can also delete a user from here, and you can create a new user from this model. So let's demonstrate. First of all, let's delete one of these users. So let's delete, for example, this one, and you can see that it is the button is disabled. And after the deletion is complete, there is going to be a router refresh, and we're going to fetch the new data from the database. And the same thing for create. So when I do create user, let's try to create, I don't know, test2 with test@gmail.com. Let's say that the age is going to be 20, and let's say that it's going to be an admin, and submit. So you can see successfully created a new user. You can already see this user in the table. So you can close this modal. And now we have a new user that we just created. All right, so let's look at the Next.js folder structure. So first of all, as usually, we have the app folder, and inside it we have components. And for this project now we have the API folder, which is going to hold the API routes in our project. So basically the REST API. And to create a new route, you create a new route.ts file. So I have one route.ts file for just users, and one for users/ID, so dynamic ID. So before we go into the files, let's continue with all the other folders. So of course we have the Prisma folder, which is connecting to the PlanetScale database. I'm using Prisma because it's the best developer experience, even though it's a little bit less performant. And we have the lib folder over here. So we have the actual actions that perform the database operations. So we have the actions for user that is just responsible for using the Prisma client, and just creating a user and getting user, deleting. So we're just missing the update, which is going to basically be the same as the create one. So another thing that we have is the DB itself that exposes the Prisma client, and the little arrow handler that I created. So the purpose of this is just to type the error properly, so we get error as a known, and if the error is instance of error, we log it and we return an object with error.message, and otherwise we return an object with custom message of unquote error. Okay, so this is it for all the not relevant stuff. Now let's look at the API itself. So in the route, in this, just API/users, we're going to have two methods basically. So it's going to expose a post and get function. And for the post, we're going to create a user. So we receive the request, and we can say that the data is going to be request.json, and we can create a user with the create user method from our actions, and we can pass the data over here to the create user, and we get a user, okay? And of course, we return the response with the user. Otherwise, if there is an error, we return the error handler with the error and the status of 400. And the same thing for get function. We're going to use the action of get users, and then we're going to return the users. And if there is an error, we're going to return error. So now let's look at the delete function, at the delete route. So basically, I receive the ID from the params, okay? So I can say here, if I don't have an ID, I want to throw an error, and otherwise I want to delete the user with the ID. Basically, I'm converting the ID to a number with this plus over here. And actually, I don't need to make it a variable. I just wanted to try some stuff, but if I want to return the user in the response, I can return the deleted user, okay? And of course, again, I'm throwing an arrow. And this is basically the API routes. So this is what I need to create this REST API. So now let's look at the pages and see how we're actually using this API routes. Okay, so we can close all of this. So the page is going to get the users. Okay, so server side, it's a server side component, a server side page going to do async function to get the users. Basically, I'm using here the fetch to fetch the endpoint that I created. So /API/users, the method is get, and I provide here option with no cache. Okay, so I want to fetch the data every time I visit the page. Okay. If there is an error, so I throw this error, otherwise I return res.json. And here you can see that I'm using this users. So basically I'm awaiting get users. And then we have this table that I created. If users.length bigger than 0, then I'm mapping and I'm just the rows with user ID, name, email, age, and is admin. And of course, we have the delete button. And by the way, you can actually already notice the leaves, if you know what I mean from what I talked about in the last video. The leaves, the client components. So you can see the actions header is a leaf. You can already guess that this is going to be a client component because I'm using it in a separate file, but it's not necessary, but you can already guess that action header is probably going to be a client component. Why? Because we have this button that is interactable, as well as this delete button. You probably can guess that this delete button is going to be a client component. It's not that hard to guess it. So yeah, so this is basically the page for the home page for the users. And now let's look at the action header. So we can go to components, action header, and here we just have a button. So as you can see, it's a client component. We have on click with handle click. So let's actually look at the create user form component. So this component is what is going to be inside this modal. So basically this form. Okay, so we have a simple client component over here with form. And I'm used here React to form to manage the form. So I didn't go into too much details in the form, but I just have a simple form here with on submit, which is going to post. So I'm doing a post request to API users, and basically this post request is going to create a new user. So you can see that if I have if there is no res.ok, then I want to get the message. Okay, so I destructure the message from res.json, and I can set arrow. So set arrow is a state with it's going to be here arrow state, and I'm going to set the arrow to this message. Otherwise, if I have a success, I want to router.refresh, and I want to reset the form, and I want to set the error to nothing. I want to send the success message to successfully created a new user. Okay, so this is the on submit. Let's minimize it. And you can see here the form, which is going to have handle submit, which is something that is coming from use form, which is a React Hook form thing. If you want to know more about React Hook form, I actually have a great video explaining about it over here. Okay, so Zod plus React Hook form, very recommended one. It's the in high depth of validations of and the usage of React Hook form. So anyway, here we have form with some inputs. Okay, so we're doing register for the inputs here, and yeah, so if we have a success, we show this success alert. If we have error, we show the error alert. Okay, so this is basically the form with submit button. Nothing actually special here. And now we can see the delete button, which is going to be pretty much the same. Just we have this delete user function, which is going to call API/users/ID, which I provide in the props over here. And then we are just going to do the same thing. So yeah, so we're going to set the loading here for disabling the button. And we do router.refresh if we have a success on the deletion. So we are going to get the new updated data in our table. So this is actually it. So this was a little REST API app. I didn't go too much into the explanations because the only actual interesting part here, it's not all the other stuff like Tailwind CSS and the Daisy UI alone, all the not actually important thing that I added here. The only important thing here is the way that you can create REST APIs in your Next.js app. So this is what I wanted to demonstrate here. All of this is just to make it more accessible to the viewer. So all of this doesn't matter. I didn't even have to create this table, okay? This is what I wanted to show you, and I hope you will have an example, a good example now. I will, of course, post the link in the description to this repository. I will upload it. So I think maybe in the next video, I'm going to create an actual project with Next.js. You can write me in the comments if you have any request for what kind of project, if you have any idea of something interesting, request or something that you would like to see. So I hope you enjoyed this little demonstration, and I will see you the next one. Bye guys, and thank you for watching. And don't forget to subscribe to get notified on this Next.js series that I'm doing.